So we're recording. Yeah, so as I say, thanks for giving us your time. This is a session that will last for no longer than an hour, that Vicky Nixon and Julia Bradwell are going to host. And the purpose is to give people an opportunity to find out a little bit more about the proposed holiday activity and food programme. But I know Vicky and Julia are keen to hear from you as well. So I think it'll be a bit of information giving and a bit of information passing back. And we're running the same event this evening for those people who were unable to attend a daytime session. Yeah, so I'm probably just going to be quiet for the next hour unless I'm required. But yeah, Vicky and Julia, just let us know when you would like me to put the presentation on the screen. Thanks.
So just to follow on from what Robin said, this is the very first event we're going to do. So this isn't the be all and end all. This is just an opportunity to start to explain what the HAF is, the Holiday Activities Fund, and start to engage a little bit with the community. So we're kind of meeting with yourselves, we're going to meet with head teachers, we're with children and young people, with parents and carers, to really develop the spec. I'm going to talk about the programme almost in two separate bits. So the programme is supposed to start from the 1st of April. Obviously, with Monday's announcement, we've been backwards and forwards about what Easter will look like. I don't know if people are already aware that the COVID Winter Grant funded children on free school meals for the first week of the Easter holidays. So that they've had food vouchers for that week. And then this programme comes in from the second week of the Easter holidays. As of last week, ourselves and everyone else in the region was thinking this is going to be a remote programme because of, you know, COVID and all the restrictions around it. In light of the announcement on Monday, I don't think things have hugely changed, but I'll kind of discuss that a little bit more in a little while. Summer is going to be completely different. So that's why we want to engage with you now, because we actually want everyone to be part of developing the spec for the summer programme. So whatever the summer looks like will be on the back of what people in North Tyneside have told us, including yourself. So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a whistle stop through these presentations because we will send them to you. And what I will say is we will give you our email address, and anyone please get in touch with us for individual questions, either about your organisation, any plans or thoughts you've had, or any additional comments that you want to make that either you don't want to make today or you think about afterwards. And as I say, this is actually the first meeting in part of a long journey. So I'm kind of, what we do tonight will probably be shaped by the conversation we have today. What we'll do with head teachers will be shaped by those two conversations. It's going to evolve as we go through. So I don't know if you could start the first presentation, Robin, which is the Department for Education's presentation. So I'll just quickly kind of go through this because this explains what the programme is. So on to the next slide, right. So basically the focus of the programme is, it's slightly different from what they've done previously. The focus in the past was very much on food and providing food during school holidays. The focus is dual, it's on activities and food. What I would say is they're probably prioritising activities over food, because I've certainly asked the question about families who don't want to engage. Will we be able to offer them the safety kind of net of vouchers like we've done in the past? And that's an absolute no, we can't do that. So to me, that's kind of telling us that the focus isn't so much on food, it's more on that activity with food included. Obviously, the development of this programme is on the back of the HAF being run the previous 2 years. Last year, Gateshead and Newcastle had it. So we are working with our neighbours to kind of look at what did they learn from the programme, how have they kind of developed it. And the programme are free holiday clubs for children who are on free school meals. That doesn't contain the clubs to just include those children. In fact, they're really encouraging that the programmes are open access, but that you'll have some paid places on it. So this programme would pay for your children who access it because they're on free school meals. And just one thing to be clear, and I'm sure you all totally understand this, but we've had this over the last couple of months. When we talk about free school meals, we're talking about the income-related free school meals, not the universal offer. And I know there's debates about whether it should or shouldn't be, but this programme is for those on income-related free school meals. So next slide, Robin, please. That's just going through a bit of the history of the programme. As I say, I'm not going to go on every slide because I'm going to send this out to you. Next slide, please. So this, if any of you are interested in what kind of happened locally, it was Street Games that ran it in Newcastle, and the local authority actually ran the programme in Gateshead. And I will call the website the wrong name again, but Gateshead do have, I think it's called Brighten the Day, #BrightenTheDay website that they developed on the back of that. And that's one of the things that we're looking at as well. So this programme isn't just about directly funding the activities that we'll expect all of you in this call will be interested in running. It's some of the infrastructure as well, things like the information for children and families. Next slide, please. So this year they've expanded it so every local authority will get funding. So previous years where we've had to apply, we applied last year, we didn't get the funding. It's actually been spread to all local authorities. It covers, as I say, 1 week of Easter, 4 weeks in the summer and 1 week at Christmas. So we will be looking and having conversations with people about what all of those holiday periods look like. And there's a real emphasis on the importance of involving the community and voluntary sector in delivering this programme and in helping set it up and like designing the spec, which is exactly why we're having this first conversation now. Next slide, please. So obviously this presentation was given to us in January. I don't think there's things massively changed other than we got a bit of a kind of time frame on Monday. So in terms of what we will expect, I think we're very clearly expecting in the summer it will be face-to-face activities, very definitely. We're thinking things will be moved on by then and we'll be able to do that. Easter, you know, we're looking at some alternatives and we're meeting with some people over the course of the next sort of week or so to look at a more kind of digital programme. Having said that, we're really interested in if people are planning activities for Easter, about what it is they're planning to do and who they're planning to engage with, because we're not taking anything off the table, essentially. We're just trying to do some concurrent planning here so that we've got provision over the Easter. Next slide, please. So in terms of the programme overall, there are some minimum standards that have to be in as part of the programme. So they will go in our spec that we put out for the summer activity. So so I've just seen Pauline pop up a question there. The additional money is more education based, so that's more through schools. We don't know what the impact will be yet because we have to have conversations with our colleagues in school improvement to see about that. It's an interesting thing because obviously there's an emphasis towards children, that the funding that was announced today, the emphasis on catch up. But I think our emphasis is on, it's almost like, I think you'll have heard the phrase being bandied about the summer of play and about how we support children's emotional well-being. And as soon as we find out how those two programmes interlink, will kind of be, that'll be developing the programme as well. So in terms of the standards, there will be an expectation that the food that is delivered is to the school meal standards, so that will be part of the spec. You'll get that information up front. It's expected to be enriching activities. So I think, you know, we're really keen to look at not just the traditional sports-based activities, but, you know, drama, dance, kind of, you know, all those kind of things that if you think about children missing virtually a year of school, all the opportunities they've missed out on. So you've got, you know, children who won't have accessed out of school clubs after school, they won't have accessed school trips, they won't, you know, the majority of our, and it's a long time since my children were in primary school, the majority of our year sixes would have been away, you know, at high borrowings, activities like that. So it's thinking about what have they missed out on the past year and how can we enrich the activities that we deliver. There is some expectations around physical activities, and we're working on some standards to be reached around that. There is a focus in the programme as well about not just, this is about making it sustainable. This isn't just about delivering in the summer 4 weeks of activities. So it's how do we educate children and families around nutrition? How do we make this programme sustainable beyond the 4 weeks that we're doing? So there is an opportunity, for example, you know, and it wouldn't be that you would fund it across the board, but there is an opportunity to involve parents in this as well. So you may want to deliver some kind of, I know we've been approached by somebody who's really interested. They've got like a working kitchen and developing cooking classes with parents and children, and then, you know, they eat that food, but they take it away and they're able to do it at home. But it's how we educate our families on what good nutrition is. And obviously the expectation that would be linked to any funding is around the policies and procedures, like your safeguarding, for example. Next slide. Right, so the programme will be coordinated by the local authority. What we expect, and as I say, I'm going to parky stuff for now, because I think I would like to have separate conversations with people about that. But in the summer, if we look at the summer, and that's what we're developing a spec for, it's a 4x4x4 model. So there's an expectation that we deliver 4 hours a day, 4 days a week for 4 weeks of the summer. And that's the minimum that we're expected to deliver. That doesn't mean that's all you can deliver. You know, you could kind of do that very differently across the 6 weeks, for example, but that's the minimum that we're expected to deliver through this programme. We will be looking at recruiting a local coordinator. Part of their role is to map the provision. We've already started that, so we're working with our policy and performance team. Hopefully what we'll be able to do is give you that information. So that's part of you actually applying for some of this funding, is knowing where the children are. And what we're trying to do is overlay. And again, if you think there's anything else that will be useful, please let us know, because what we're trying to overlay is where children on free school meals live, where they go to school, where our VCS are. So we kind of are trying to overlay all of that information. But if there's anything else you think actually would be really useful to know this, then, you know, please do let us know, and we'll include that as part of our mapping. They will also be expected to award the funding. There's an expectation about supporting providers. We're really interested in the real small organisations getting involved in this. So although, you know, the likes of our colleagues in Newcastle got street games to deliver their whole programme, they are certainly looking at, they've done a bit of a weaning off. So the first year they went solely to street games. The second year it was street games working with the VCS, and there's more expectation this year that they'll work completely with the VCS. And I think at the moment, what we would like to do, subject to all the engagement we're doing, is just be completely with our VCS and just go in there. But we really want the smaller organisations to get involved. So we are really interested in how we support those smaller organisations. So for example, you might have somebody who could really fulfil the food element of it, but not so much the activities. And it's how we support them to match up with an organisation that can deliver on the activities, but not the food. So we don't want anyone to feel that they can't be part of this programme because there's an element that they would struggle to provide. It's obviously about promoting provision across the borough to children and families, working with schools. And I'm sorry, because my camera's on the last one, so I can't see what the green one is underneath. Can I minimise? Oh, there.
Work with others.
Working with others. So that will be about facilitating our steering group. It will be continuing to work with yourselves across. What we don't know, and you know, I'm expecting we'll find out very last minute. At the minute, this programme is running until Christmas. We have not been told it will go beyond that. I'm guessing this was announced in November. We didn't get the detail till kind of January time. So I'm guessing we're looking at more or less the same timescales. But in light of not knowing anything and going on the basis that there won't be more funding available, the coordinator will be expected to work with people across the borough, organisations, schools, kind of agencies, bigger agencies, to make this more sustainable. They're also expected to work with people like businesses, local supermarkets, etc., to get them involved in the programme, and that helps to develop that sustainable approach within the borough. Next slide, please. So there's some feedback from parents there. As I say, I'll send this out to you. We're going to show you another kind of presentation, which includes some feedback from children, young people, which I think is probably more valuable than kind of going through all of this at the moment. Next slide, please. So what's worked well? So this is the feedback from the programmes that have run to date. So it was about the huge amount of work done by coordinators and staff. I don't think any organisation has underestimated how much work needed to be done. The variety of programmes, so this is why we're engaging with yourselves now and others to look at what our programme should look like in the summer. We're not making any assumptions about what the programme should be like. There's a huge focus, as I've mentioned already, about building capacity in the sector. Some innovative approaches to mapping demand and ensuring there's provision. We're talking to lots of local authorities about what they've developed on the back of that. So, you know, as I've mentioned, Gateshead have got a bit of a website, but there's some that have developed it even more, which makes it more accessible for parents to choose where they want to book the children in, for example. The minimum standards seem to work really well across the programme, which is why they've kept them in. The 4x4 approach, which I've mentioned, and as I've already mentioned, we don't have to stick rigidly that. That's seen as a bit of a minimum. And obviously about how we engage with our parents and families in the borough, which is what we've started to do now. Next slide, please. So the challenges, I think there's, you know, certainly the meetings I've been in, the comments are that it's a huge challenge getting the biggest partnership that we can. And I think looking at working with schools, I think that's even more of a challenge right now because of obviously our schools are overwhelmed during this period and will be over the next few weeks trying to get everything back on board and with testing and everything. So obviously we've just got to make sure we work hard at kind of bringing those on board. Collecting the data and managing the information. Again, we're looking at systems that other authorities who've already been through this programme. What we want to do is make it as least impact as possible on organisations, because that is going to put off some of the smaller organisations applying for funding. And the work that we need to do around meeting the food standards. So making sure, you know, and that might be, as I've already mentioned, about matching people up. If some providers feel actually that we can't do that, we could maybe match you up with somebody who could do that. The irony of the next one, which is sufficient time to plan and prepare, because I don't think we've had that, and that, you know, certainly in terms of the Easter. And that comment that I've already touched on a couple of times now about the smaller organisations needing more intensive support, and that will be the role of the coordinator. Next slide, please. That's just a kind of a bit for us in terms of how we link with the implementation team and how we will link up, and they will review our delivery plans. We've got our first return to be in this month, just around our plans for Easter. And just how they will support us to roll the programme out in the borough. Next slide, please. And that's just, again, our next steps for us. And I think that should be the end of that presentation. Do you want me to quickly take any questions before we go? Our next presentation is a bit of a watch thing. It's got some films in, and it's a presentation that's been done by some young people, some food ambassadors, about what a good holiday programme looks like. And we thought that was quite valuable to share at this point. And it's something that...
Uh-oh.
Have we frozen?
Yeah, seems to have. We'll just... Julia, are you able to take any questions whilst I get the other presentation ready and whilst we wait for Vicky to defrost?
I can certainly take questions. Whether I can answer them would be a different story, but I can definitely take note of them, and then when Vicky returns we can either answer them then or after the next presentation, if that's all right.
Yeah. Don?
Yeah, Julie, I don't know if you heard me, Vicky. I wonder if there's any the learning what's taking place from the smaller October program when you coordinated across the borough. I wonder what lessons we'll learn from that and what we can take forward, Julie.
Yeah, from October. Half term. Just a second, because Vicky's also contacting us about a connection issues.
I think it was when I was chatting to Julia and Vicky in advance of this session, I think we were in agreement that it would be really useful to hear from those of you who delivered in the October half term in terms of what went well, but also what could have been in place that could have made it even better. I mean, the clear one was there was very little time to organise.
Yeah, I think that on reflection, I think timing was a real issue. I think probably looking back, we could have done a more extensive evaluation, because I think it would have massively helped that. But yeah, it would be interesting to hear from your side how it was for you, and how easy or difficult it was to get set up. Yeah,
I concur. I think the issue was timing. I think if there'd been more time, not necessarily for, say, for example, for us at the Y, because we have the infrastructure there, the kitchen, the space and all that, but it was the school. It was the school. We focused on White House School because we already have a relationship with them. We run after school projects and so on and so forth, and so on. And we have 40 young people on the roll who are all premium young people. So we were all ready to go. The problem was the school, the head teacher, Rachel, just didn't have the time to get stuff out to the parents and so on and so forth. So I think with more time for the schools, we would have certainly attracted more young people. And just one other thing with something in consideration is we had a call from several parents who said, yeah, they would love their kids to come over, but there was one mum who had three children. She wanted to send her 11-year-old, but she couldn't get the 11-year-old to the YMCA, although it was only like a mile and a half away, because she had childcare responsibilities. So I just think something we need to be thinking about is, you know, in terms of transport and accessibility and so on and so forth. But in essence, the program went well. The young people arrived at 11. They stayed till about 1:30. I think you visited there once or twice.
I did, yeah.
The young people were getting a nice meal, and the workers engaged with the young people about food and what do you have at home and so on and so forth, what food do you like, what you don't like. And they also had a little activity, and it was quite light touch, a bit of art and crafts and so on and so forth. So it was a great experience. Numbers were very small, but we do feel with more time it could have been bigger and better.
Right, thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess something there about kind of lead-in time and access to young people. I'm trying to keep a track of who put hands, either virtual or real hands. I think we'll go Pauline, Karen, Jill, if that's all right. But we'll make sure everyone gets a chance to have their comments. Pauline?
I just had a couple of things, and one was to echo what Don said, and I think what you've got on the call and in the sector are a few organisations, including Mandy at Medwell Connected, and us that have done this before lots of times. So please don't disregard that experience and the capacity building that we've already done on that, because we can support the smaller organisations, but we've done it, we've walked into the lampposts and we know how to keep our eyes open now. And I think we all had some fantastic successes in October, despite a ridiculously short time scale, and some real good outcomes. And I know you witnessed that and I know you know it, but it's just, you know, we all learned a lot from that, and we've still got those protocols in place, we've still got the sessions in place, so there's something there that we can build on. The other question that I had was very early, because I've been watching this through the Department of Education for a long time, since this, you know, announced the plans last year, and there was an indication at the beginning that they were very concerned not only about the free school meal standards, but about safeguarding standards and about having, initially they were talking about having some Ofsted style childcare provision. I think they've backed off a little bit on that, but do you know whether there are standards in terms, I hope there are, in terms of that safeguarding and childcare experience, because this is quite a big undertaking with lots of very vulnerable young people?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't right now, but we can definitely look into that and get all of that information across to everyone who's been part of these events. But yeah, that's definitely something that we need to be making sure of.
Hello. Sorry, I've managed to get it on my phone. Somehow we won't let us back in. The will, and that's part of the coordinator's role, is taken. So just bearing in mind that the guidance that we get for the Department for Education is minimum standards. So obviously, if there was anything that we thought our expectations should be high, that's part of the coordinator's role, is to develop that, and that they all will be clear in the kind of spec that we put out. So we wouldn't actually approve any funding for any organisations that couldn't reach those minimum standards.
Great, thank you. Karen and then Jill, thanks. Sorry, when people talk, I should have said this before, but if people wouldn't mind just letting us know where they're from. Obviously, we know Don's from the YMCA and Pauline is from Family Gateway. Karen?
Thanks, Robin. Sorry, I was struggling to get the things to work there. Karen Clark, Justice Prince Community Interest Company based in Long-Benton. First of all, just want to say, yes, obviously agree with what colleagues have said in terms of the timescales for the October half term, but overall it went really well and we managed to do a phenomenal job, which is obviously probably largely based on the fact we've done a lot of this stuff before, so we were able to act swiftly and quickly and get the word out. So yeah, so it was all great, other than I think the pressure of the time scale. The other thing I was just going to ask, sorry, apologies, I missed the first couple of minutes of the meeting. I wasn't aware whether anything had been said about the time scale in terms of this call. What's the time scale for this, for putting in the application, etc.?
We haven't, so we haven't put anything out yet. So the purpose of this meeting is to help us develop the spec for the summer programme. We're going to deal with Easter completely separately. And as I said in the beginning of the call, I'm happy to talk to any providers who've already got some plans for Easter, because as of last week, there was very much a feeling that there wouldn't be face-to-face activity happening. So I'm happy to take any conversations separately and people can contact us about any plans at Easter. But really what we're trying to do now is develop a comprehensive spec for the summer programme that the VCS, schools, parents, children, and partner organisations who are linking with health, police, etc., help shape, so it becomes a programme that everybody's kind of happy with. So as yet, this is the very first step in that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vicky.
Okay.
Thanks, Karen. Jill?
Hi, I'm Jill Gray. I'm the chair of Wallsend Action for Youth, that you might know as WAFI. Just a little bit, I didn't do anything last October, but last summer we actually pulled something together. We got some funding and we ran 3 weeks. So we negotiated with one of the schools to give us their building, and we worked with partners to deliver. So we worked with John Percival, who's on the call here, from Wallsend Boys Club, someone called Active Futures, and with Louise Cervantes we ran an extra week in Battle Hill Multi-Use. Just to say a couple of the highlights that went really well were having hot food for the children, when a lot of them had been surviving on sandwiches for a long time by then. And the other thing, that it was very child-led. So while John and Matt had really good plans for their workers to deliver things, when the children got in there, quite often the children changed those plans and the staff went with it. And that was commented on by the staff, the parents and the children, on what a good time that was, that it wasn't activity-led. And another one was just a question, was what age group are you talking about? Are we only talking about school-age children, or are we talking about the younger ones?
This is only school-age children.
So are you saying from 5? Are we saying nursery and reception as well?
My understanding is it's reception. I'll double check the nursery, but I'm pretty sure it's reception upwards.
Okay, right, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jill.
Just sorry, on the back of that, just to say it doesn't include college either. So if you've got students who are in what would be the equivalent of years 12 and 13, and they're off at college, it doesn't include kind of further education either.
Thanks, Vicky. Claire, please.
Hiya, my name's Claire Hodge and I work at Wallsend Memorial Hall and People's Centre. And this is a really, really big centre with a dance hall. We'll have a dance group meet here and things like this. Traditionally, and for a long time, they hadn't been particularly engaged with children and young people in any way whatsoever. So it was largely rental space. But last October, and I think we should all be really proud of ourselves about what was achieved at very short notice, and I'm not blaming anybody for that, it's just life some of the time. But we came into contact with over 50 children and their families that we probably wouldn't have come into contact with by providing food that largely went out, but with packs and everything. We've actually maintained contact with all of those families. In fact, on a Wednesday, there's a family meal goes out to those families. So we've kept, and some of those families are now coming to us as volunteers. So what I would like to say is, I think it's really important that we communicate effectively, because we then picked up older people's work on the back of that. And I don't mind going to the nth degree, and I'm sure lots of others do, but there's a way of putting a patchwork of projects together. And I've worked on projects in Newcastle, taking the street games scenario, where someone traditionally might not use you, but they will use you, and someone's really good at something, but we don't necessarily have the childcare element in the building, but we can offer space to people that things can be delivered on if they normally don't deliver in the area. Some of those families, we've had some great outputs from some of the work about them cooking more, eating less meals, and we're more than happy to share some of that information at an appropriate time. And like you say, some of the families are actually going to start volunteering in the centre. So I think there's greater outputs and outcomes to the work than just actually what happens with that child on that day.
Great, thanks, Claire. Great. So, Vicky, shall I put up the next presentation? You're on mute, Vicky, at the moment. But
it's terrible trying to work on a tiny little phone. Yes, please.
Okay.
So basically, these are the young food ambassadors, and we thought it was just a really useful kind of thing just to show you. This is the. Can I just remind everybody that this is the very first meeting we've held with anybody, so this is just initial ideas gathering. So we thought it was useful to show you this as a starting point, but we are doing some engagement with children and families in North Tyneside. So next slide, please. And again, we will send these out to you. So that just gives a bit of information about who the children are who produced this. Next slide, please. And what, you know, the content of this is about, because I think we've got to think that we've got approximately 5,800 children in this borough who will be eligible for this programme. Now, there isn't an expectation on us that we get 100% engagement, but it's thinking creatively about how do we engage, you know, the majority of children and families in the borough. So what is going to make our programme attractive to those families? Next slide, please. And I think this should just be the start of the videos.
No, hang on a minute. Sorry, let's just see if that's going to play. We might have a technical hitch here.
Right. No.
I wonder if shall we, rather than spend the next 10 minutes me trying to get it to work, if we send it round.
We'll just send it round. So as I said, this is a starting point. We will be, and you know, we will be coming back to yourselves and asking you to ask the children and families that you work with to help us kind of pull together a bit of what our programme should look like. That's all going to be used in our spec. So when we eventually get the program developed and we get this information sent out, you should be able to see very clearly running through all the way through this program about what children and families in the borough want out of the program, because essentially this isn't going to work if we're not bringing those along on the kind of journey with us. And I'm going to try really hard. So yeah, I think what we have to remember, this program is for children on free school meals and others, so those kind of paid places. So by all means, that doesn't have to be the parents and carers paying. You could have match funding there that covers those places. But I think in terms of thinking from a parent's perspective, is thinking about those who still like have work commitments, for example, and that's why I said the 4x4x4 approach isn't set in stone. So if you know that the families you work with actually would prefer longer days because it helps them go out to work, that's fine as well. It's thinking about the place. What they found out of this program so far is most children and families didn't travel more than a mile to access a resource. So I think that's worth thinking about. And again, for those smaller organisations, it might be, as Claire said, a bit of that patchwork approach. So it might be that, you know, you're running your activity from a different facility, and that's what the outreach worker will help do, is look for where there's places in local communities that can support it. I think the comms is really important. I think, you know, a few of you have already touched on what happened in October. We know the comms could have been a million times better with yourselves, with schools, with families. So I think, you know, that is really important as part of this programme. And I think that's part of the engagement as well, is finding out, how do families want to find out about this programme? How would they like us to give information to them? And just making sure that when we talk about, I'm very conscious because of the work that we're doing on the Poverty Intervention Fund, you know, these 5,800 children may not be the families who are struggling the most in the borough. So we know that there's, you know, the threshold for applying for free school meals is really low. So you've got families who are really struggling but can't access free school meals. I think first and foremost is encouraging any families you work with to apply for free school meals. And we've done a lot of that through the COVID Winter Grant. It helps schools out as well because they get the pupil premium, but it gives them access to things like this and the fund that we had at Christmas with the COVID Winter Grant. But it's not forgetting those kind of other families. So we'll be really keen on looking to organisations who are able to fund some of those places for more vulnerable families who aren't able to access this funding. Next slide, which I think is a video. So yeah, I think this is even more important this summer. So obviously lots of children don't go on holidays, but this summer I think even more so because of what's happening, and also because we've got a lot more families who are struggling. I think there was some research that I was reading yesterday where 2 out of 5 children who are living in poverty aren't able to access free school meals. So, you know, there's a lot of families out there who aren't getting the kind of things that some of their peers are getting, like those holidays away. So it's thinking creatively about what could the programme look like, how could it be a holiday experience. And I think this is the balance between Pauline's earlier point about the money that became available for catch-up, and that's really, really important for our children and young people, but so is some downtime and some relaxation, because you know, they've had a really tough year as well. Some social space, and I get Jill's point about it being young people led. So we know when we talk to young people about what they want their kind of activities to look like, a lot of it is just about time to spend time with my friends. It's not about a structured approach necessarily. I think particularly for, you know, secondary school pupils, and also just thinking about if they haven't had a lot of contact with their friends, even when they go back to school, if they're in bubbles and things like that, just spending time with their friends is really, really valuable as well. I think the point about hot meals is really important, and thinking, you know, you might not want it every day in the summer because if, you know, hopefully we'll get some nice weather there. But I think that is really important, that this could be the key meal in that child's day. So yes, there'll be the full food standards, but it's thinking about, you know, what is going to keep that child going. Some really cool activities. I think that's about being young people led, and knowing that their friends go as well. So I think that's a lot about our comms and our publicity and how we make it attractive. There is something very much about branding this programme as well. So we will be talking to particularly children, young people, about what the branding of this programme should look like to make it attractive. Next slide, please. Next one. That's another video. I think in terms of keeping people coming back, I think that's Claire's point about how you maintain that contact afterwards and how you kind of develop the relationships of the young people that you're working with. Some of you might be working with children, young people who you already work with, and we're just funding those places, but for a lot of you, it'll be completely new children, young people. It's how do we keep them engaged in the activities that you're providing. Robin, I'm just going to skip over some of these because I think when we send them out, I think that this one's an important one in terms of the motivations for children and people to get there. And I think we're particularly conscious about some of our older students and how we engage them. And I think the point there about it being well organised, but not like school. You know, this is the school holidays. This is the downtime before the hopefully return to the first complete year in school for kind of almost 2 years. So I think it's really important that they kind of feel part ownership of this, but that it's a comfortable place for them being there. And we've seen these comments about other places as well, about other programs, about the food that's offered being good enough, being something that's good enough for them, that they decide is good enough. So yes, it's about hitting our food standards, but it's about being creative about, you know, how you're getting that fruit and veg in and what, you know, what they would like to eat as well. Next slide. So thinking about just this is linking in that some of these children who come to you may not have had their breakfast before you come to you as well. So I think, you know, looking at what you're providing from when they come in, and also helping us to kind of keep an eye on those children that we might be concerned about, who, you know, still aren't kind of eating. As I say, that the focus on this programme is a lot around the kind of activities. Now, I'm using activities in this broader sense, not just the physical kind of activities. But, you know, I think we can't underestimate the impact of good food on children and young people and how it enables them to engage. Next slide, Robin, because I'm just conscious of time. So, and I think, I mean, this isn't, we're certainly not saying this has to be part of your programme, but I think this has come up in a lot of programmes, is about that opportunity to learn about food, you know, cook it themselves, learn about what's going into their food, having space to, you know, if you're a place where you've got some space to think about growing food and understanding where food comes from, because that's about the sustainability of this programme. It's about them understanding nutrition and not just kind of being fed. Next slide, please. And next one. Right, I think this one's a key one. And again, this is back to the point about the money that's being made available for schools. It's, you know, I think this is a really great opportunity for us to think about children and young people's emotional well-being. It's about giving them a bit of a break after they've had this next sort of term and a half at school. And, you know, children, young people have really been impacted by lockdown, not seeing their friends, not having the same opportunities. So I think that opportunity to kind of relax, to feel comfortable around staff, to be able to talk to staff, we used to be able to check in that they're okay, support them, thinking about kind of enrichment activities, thinking about some of the more, you know, I know in primary schools it's more around circle time, things like that. Something to help children and young people through that, I think, is a key element as part of this programme. It's an opportunity that I think we shouldn't miss. Next slide, please. And I think we've all shown that we're ready to adapt over the last year. I think everyone's responded fantastically well. I think all the comments that have been made about October are totally valid. People kind of, you know, jumped up and ran activities that at the drop of a hat. I think it's absolutely fine if things don't go the way that they're planned. I suppose it's about having some backup, and I think that's part of us kind of saying, if something was to happen, what's your alternative plan? How would you adapt your programme? But it's about you thinking about that. And essentially, I think that last bullet point's the key thing. Nothing replaces face-to-face, and that's what we want our summer programme to be. We are really, really, you know, apart from, you know, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but COVID coming in and hitting us like we don't expect, we are expecting this whole programme to be face-to-face in the summer. And that's it. We will send this out because I think it's really important to hear what the young people were saying as well. And as I say, we'll start to send out some kind of consultation documents that, you know, if you could work with children and families that access your services and ask them what they want. And we'll put that all together as part of the spec so that people, anybody, you know, not just yourselves in the call, but anyone who wants to apply for this funding is very clear. This is what children and families in the borough say they want out of this programme.
Brilliant, thanks Vicky.
Yeah, does it feel like I've covered? I think what I probably haven't covered is we've got approximately £790,000 to spend over the course of the programme. So, you know, yes, there's an element of that is linked to the kind of infrastructure of the programme. But I think, you know, we've got a really great opportunity to do something very creative and very inclusive over the summer period.
Vicky, I'm just keeping an eye on the chat, and there was something, I know Mandy had raised an issue of how will this programme sit alongside some of the learning catch-up activity. I think
that links to Pauline's earlier point about the funding that's made it available. It's literally just too early to say. I mean, like, they've only announced that funding this morning. I think, you know, I mean, we involve school improvement and schools in kind of all of our planning. And I think it's really important that we tie those two programmes up, because, you know, there's some children, yes, we know that catch-up activities need to happen. We need to get our children back on track in terms of their education. But I don't think you can underestimate the need for some downtime as well. And some, you know, as I say, that phrase about making it a summer of play. And there's lots of learning that can be had through those more enrichment activities.
Great, thanks, Vicky. Yeah, we're nearing the end of the session. I guess there'll be an opportunity for final questions, but I guess I would be interested in kind of where do we go from here? Like, what are the next? Obviously, we've got another session this evening where I think we've got 3 or 4 organisations attending, but I think maybe it would be useful for people just to understand what the next steps are.
So in terms of what we're doing, kind of back in the office, so to speak, so we're in the process of developing that coordinator's role and putting that out. I think part of that will be key in terms of awarding the funding, linking with organisations, etc. I think we're holding a series of meetings like this. So this is the first one. And then, as you've said, we've got one tonight with other VCS colleagues. We are meeting with head teachers, we're meeting with council officers, you know, we'll look public health, education, kind of linking with our early help staff. So, you know, what we really want is to get the engagement on this right and get lots of opinions. So that's kind of the key activity that we're working on at the moment. What we're doing is running parallel with that is obviously looking at Easter. So if anybody is planning, already planned, what we're not doing is putting something out there saying, can you run something at Easter? We're absolutely not doing that. And we've got some kind of plans kind of in the background about having a more remote offer. And that's partnering with some other local authorities to do that. But essentially, if someone is already running something and it fits into the programme, we're certainly open to have a conversation. I think once we pull, we're working with our procurement and commissioning colleagues to pull the spec together. and we hope to get that out as early as we can, really. I mean, obviously, we've got a number of processes internally that we need to go through, because of the amount of the funding. It will have to go to Cabinet. But I think what we wanted to be able to do as part of that Cabinet report is talk about kind of what the engagement has told us, so we could talk a little bit about what the programme should look like in the borough. I've just noticed it flick up, someone say about what about the half term. It doesn't cover the half term. It only covers 1 week at Easter, 4 weeks in summer and 1 week at Christmas. So it doesn't cover October half term either. I'm very conscious, and I have raised it, as have colleagues and other local authorities. I've raised it internally, and a number of us have raised it with the Department for Education, is that families are getting used to getting vouchers now to cover school holidays. So June and October are going to be issues, as well as the issues of those families who don't want to engage on the programme, and where they're going to get support from. So, we know there's other things that we need to look at.
Great. The question from Bruce.
I can't see anything.
He's going to actually deliver it in real life.
Sorry, I've only got you on my screen. That's all I can see.
Yeah. Although we can't hear him. Can't hear you, Bruce.
Probably gone for a run.
He's definitely there. He's just talking to himself. I think unless Bruce is able to join us in the next few moments, we'll leave Bruce to maybe share that question in the comments. So first of all, thanks to Vicky and Julia for putting the session together. Thanks for turning up. And I guess the conversation remains open, Vicky. So Vicky, you would be keen to hear from anyone who may be able to deliver something in the Easter.
Can I ask that if anyone wants to make contact, please don't email me. Bruce, I'll come to that in a second. I'm guessing you're talking about the Easter break.
I'm putting the email address in the chat right now, so please use this one.
Yeah, please use the participation email. If I'm off and something goes in my inbox, like I won't get to it straight away. At least someone else can pick it up. So Bruce's question was about the Easter holidays. I guess technically the money's for the second week of the Easter holidays, because the money comes on board from the 1st of April. What I will say is that, we will be monitored. So there's very heavy, and there's an external evaluator will be part of the programme. And we're heavily monitored on this programme. Hence why I said we're trying to do some work to take some of that away from you, but not so much in the Easter. Because in Easter, they understand that we're kind of trying to turn this around really quickly. We have to provide them some information in 2 days' time, just about what we would like to achieve, but we're not going to be heavily monitored. So if it's best for I'm making this really long-winded, but if it's best for the children that are accessing your facility to spread it out over the 2 weeks, then I guess that's about your local knowledge and your knowledge of your children and families.
Great, thanks, Vicky. So hopefully everyone's had a chance just to take down that email address that was in the chat. I'll maybe send that along with the slides following this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
At which point let's finish there. So thanks very much. Sounds like a very exciting opportunity. See you all soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vicky. Thank you. And thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.